Hello and welcome to another week and another new episode of the Terry McGriff Show. Man, happy New Year to everybody. I want to see that everybody has made it through the New Year safely. You know, we've had some people since the New Year happened already left us. We've had a lot of interesting news going on. Today is a very crazy day up here on the Capitol. It's just one of those weeks. It's one of those times where every year something new. I hope 2021 is better than 2020 was, but it looks like it's already starting out to be interesting. But with that said, we're going to keep things rolling. I'm going to bring in my illustrious co-host, Andre L. Sullivan. They're live in the iHeart Radio studios. Andre, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm still waiting on my Bugatti from 2020, but, it come through for me.
I know, man. Hey, I seen that lottery up there. I was riding down the highway, and it was like $400 million. And I'm like, ooh, I'm about to get me a ticket. Oh, my goodness. Oh, wow. I mean, that's retirement money right there. So, man, yeah, it's been one of those crazy weekends, a crazy week. We got a lot of interesting stuff we're going to talk about, starting with the college football playoffs. You was right. I was wrong. Well, I didn't say that. But then we're gonna talk about the NFL playoffs. That was a heck of a weekend this weekend. We're gonna get into a little bit of that, who got in and some of the interesting stuff that happened with that. We're gonna also talk about, Black Monday. You know how it is. End of the season, people get the axe. So that's what's going on with that. All the GMs, all the head coaches that got fired. And then there's another great news for a bunch of guys. There was a Hall of Fame NFL announced a Hall of Fame finalist. And one of our local guys once again made that finalist list. So we're gonna talk about all that in this week's show, and we're gonna just entertain our fans. We'd like to first of all thank my sponsors like She-Car, Team Sportswear Direct. Like to take recognition to Watch Game Film. All those guys out there, they do a great job for us, making sure supporting us, and definitely cannot forget the doggone Women's Tackle Football League. You just can't forget those guys. I mean, and the ladies and everybody that was associated with the league. Man, it's just going to be a very, very, very interesting year already. I mean, I can tell it's going to be a very, very interesting year just by the way it started. We've had some people that left us already, found out that, not necessarily sports related, but he'd always been around sports. Dr. Dre had a brain aneurysm. So, a shout out to his family and prayers for him and his family. We had some more people in sports world leave us right in the beginning of this year, So, I mean, it's like I said, going on. And then what's going on today on Capitol Hill here as we're recording this show on Tuesday afternoon. Excuse me. Yeah, we in the Lord. I'm just losing track of time, boy. We in Wednesday. My God, man. We usually do it on Tuesday, but we're in Wednesday. I mean, just show you how fast this week has gone by. We had also I'd like to give a congratulations to Devontae Smith, who was the first wide receiver to win the Heisman Trophy since what was his name with the Michigan Wolverines. Lord have mercy. Desmond Howard. I'm sorry, Desmond. We see him every year every weekend on college football, so we kind of forget who he is. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that he joined some elite company, being just the two of them. There's three of them now that's exclusive wide receivers to be Heisman Trophy winners. And the great Johnny Rodgers, can't forget the great Johnny Rodgers over at Nebraska. So, man, let's just jump into this, man. College football this weekend, the playoffs. The games were not competitive. We knew about the Alabama, but we definitely didn't see, except for you, I'll give you credit.
Oh, okay.
We didn't see the comment. I could when I even said it, I could see them winning. I just didn't see them blowing out Clemson that way. They really exposed them. But however, they did have a little bit of help. The targeting foul on the linebacker for Clemson really opened up and exposed everything. Trey Sermon was already having a good game rushing the ball for Ohio State, but when you lose your top player on the defense, your middle linebacker, you have no hope of shutting Ohio State down. And then they brought the safeties up, and they were able to beat them on a couple of deep passes. And Ohio State showed that they belong. I mean, they were very well motivated by Dabo Swinney. You got to give Dabo much credit for motivating a bunch of guys who are already talented, that believed that they needed to be there. And you also had, people had something to prove. You had a bunch of guys at Ohio State who had something to prove, and they proved it in a resounding way. So the game was never in doubt from the beginning. And kudos to Ohio State. Let's see if they can turn that and do the same thing to Alabama. That's going to be an interesting game. But what I saw is I think the game is going to be a good matchup next week. The game would have happened before we have our next show. But I think it's going to be a better game than any of the playoff games that we had in a while. I think it should be one of those good, close championship games similar to when Alabama played Georgia for the national title. Hopefully it's that entertaining for everybody. I might try to go see my former buddy and watch the game with him, Eric Curry, former Alabama great from the '92 national championship team. See if we can watch it and hang out and watch that game. Might have to bring you over and check it out with him. So that ought to be interesting. And man, let me tell you, I just didn't see it coming for us, that domination of Ohio State. I didn't see how fit that they were going to be that physical, especially coming in from their championship game that they had with the Big Ten championship and all the other stuff that went on. But I'm going to let you chime in on that. So time for you to take the stage and tell me and everybody else I told you so.
I'm not gonna say I told you so, but you did that for me. But and I'm gonna get into the Ohio State Clemson game here in a little bit, but the Notre Dame Alabama game, like you said, I didn't see that blowout coming. Just because I thought Notre Dame, their defense had something there, and it just didn't come to fruition last weekend. But I think Mac Jones is probably one of the most underrated QBs in college sports right now. And granted, he's getting all of his accolades, but they still don't put him up there with Trevor, and they don't put him up there with Justin, and it's a shame because in a playoff game, he went 25 for 30 with 297 yards and 4 touchdowns. That doesn't happen by happenstance. And granted, he has some of the best receivers, obviously a Heisman Trophy winning receiver outside there catching the ball for him, but that just does not happen by luck or by happenstance. You earn that right. And kudos to Alabama. Notre Dame didn't put their best foot forward. And in the words of Brian Kelly, your destiny is in your hands and you didn't do your job. So that's what happened with that. But yeah, that Ohio State Clemson game. Listen, I told you guys last week, don't underestimate Ohio State and don't write in Clemson in pen for that national championship because this Ohio State team has something to prove. If we take away all of the trash talk that was said before the game, we take away all of the stats, the game, it's one little note that people tend to forget about when it comes to these games. 2 things. One in particular for this year, COVID. There are some players who cannot play during this time. If you had contact with COVID or anything like that. And not only that, with COVID year, you also get to sit out if you're trying to get an early start on going to the NFL. A lot of those Clemson players took that and said, hey, bump this national championship. We're going to get a ring either way if they go. Chuck the deuces to Dabo Swinney and took their ride and started getting ready for the draft, man. And on top of that, number 2, all the big talk was that Ohio State only played 6 games going into this game. And Clemson played a full schedule. Listen, you guys, there's something that can be said about attrition late in the season. If I have more healthy players than you have, guess what? That's a leg up for me when it comes to football. And any coach can know that. And like you alluded to, yeah, that targeting hit, we can argue about that all day. Was it actual targeting? Whether it wasn't? But if you take your best man off the field and my best man is still on the field, I'm gonna win that game. And Justin Fields went 22 for 28. And that's not luck. I need people to understand that. People are like, oh, well, they didn't have such and such. They didn't have such and such. Hey, Diabo Swinney put 11 people on the field. Ohio State put 11 people on the field. After that, you do what you got to do. Because once they blow the whistle, it really don't matter. As long as they got on a helmet, proper protective equipment, a jersey, and a mouthpiece, that's all you need to play. And so at that point, you play football. And I get it. Look, Trevor Lawrence went 33 for 48, 400 yards. Don't take this game as a shot at Trevor Lawrence to say that he isn't who he is. He was who we thought he was. And just Ohio State didn't let him off the hook. And so you gotta give it to him. Kudos to Ohio State defense. They didn't get enough praise for this game. And yeah, they gave up 400 yards in the air to Trevor Lawrence. Their coach literally said, we'll give them that. What they won't do is give Travis Etienne all that ground on the field. He only managed 32 yards on the ground. When Travis Etienne averages every game with 78 plus yards on the ground this season. Yeah, no, that's what happened. Listen, I told y'all last week, and I won't get into the I told you so, but you have to attribute all of this to the point that Ohio State didn't play as many games as Clemson. You're right. Guess what they got to do? Sit at home and watch football. And who are you turning on? It's two teams you got to watch, Alabama and Clemson. So they got a nice little view from the couch when those times that they weren't playing the game. And if I'm a coach, and like you are a coach, all you're doing is sitting down, okay, okay, okay. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter who you have on the field. The best athlete in the world, unless his name is Jesus Christ on the back of that jersey, and another coach has time to sit and study you, he's going to figure you out. And all that time at the house that they didn't get to play, I'm sorry, man.
I tell you, you're right. They put the time to good use, and they were prepared. What really surprised me about this was that I was shocked at the lack of depth that Clemson had, offensively and defensively. That really was I was expecting, if you look at all the recruiting the last few years, all the guys with Clemson supposedly has back there, this dude and that dude, there's another dude waiting his turn, to do similar to the Alabama or the Ohio State. Maybe we have to now look and say Clemson has missed on some guys because, you were thinking, well, this guy could get his time on a big stage to come in when the middle linebacker, I can be the guy now. I can let everybody know who I am. And that was like they didn't have anybody. It didn't look like they had, just be honest, the cornerbacks for Clemson didn't look like they could start at Florida. And Florida's defense wasn't that great this year. I didn't see a defensive guy in the defensive back end that would have put for the Gators, let alone Alabama or anything. So maybe Alabama with Patrick Surtain and I forget number 28, their other cornerback, will show up and do a lot better job than Clemson's guys done, because those guys would just get run right by like they were standing in quicksand. And it was not pretty to watch Clemson play football, because that did not look like Clemson of the last 5 years. It looks like the early 2000 Clemson, that when we used to say Clemson's doing the Clemson thing again. They reverted back to that old, when it comes to the big game, we don't show up type mentality. And if you want to look at the last 2 years in the playoffs, that's kind of what they have been. They've living off the Deshaun Watson years, and really didn't realize how valuable Deshaun Watson and his leadership ability was to that Clemson program and that defensive fronts that they were having. Shaq Lawson's and
just to piggyback on that just a little bit more, I think we don't acknowledge how much the draft took from Clemson. And if you recollect, Clemson hasn't been in that top tier of recruiting on the defensive side. They've been getting their offensive guys. Obviously, they got Travis Etienne. They got his backup ready. They got those receivers ready. But if you look at the stats for Clemson recruiting on defense,
Mm-hmm.
They were loaded in those senior and junior categories.
Mm-hmm.
That sophomore and freshman.
Yeah, they've seemed to miss out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was obvious in that game that there wasn't okay. There, like most teams say, that the next man up in college football. When you got those elite teams, there's a next man up. You don't have to worry about that guy talent wise. You might not have the experience, but talent wise, he can hold it on. Especially if you keep it simple. For I need you to just cover this guy, do this, and you can get that done. They were glaringly obviously that they didn't have the talent that they used to have. Maybe they'll bring in some freshmen. It'll be that dude, you know. They might have their Darryl Stingley Jr. next year coming into Clemson, but they didn't have it this year, and it was glaringly obvious that they didn't deserve to be on the field with Ohio State. And it is what it is. You can't say anything else with that. Now let's moving forward to this, talking about this. Let's take up this matchup between Ohio State and Alabama. The news is Waddle is able to come back and return to practice, so that's gonna present some problems if he's the Waddle that we thought he was at the beginning of the season, because I don't see him as even as going back to the last couple of years as consistent as Devontae Smith, but I think he's definitely more explosive and he's more dynamic playmaker. He's definitely going to provide problems because everybody knows who Devontae Smith is now that he's not this year's Heisman Trophy winner. And he has basically taken over games. That's the reason why he won the Heisman. Yeah. Mac Jones, and he's the reason Mac Jones doesn't get as much credit as he deserves. Agreed. Because he does basically embarrass his competition. But Mac Jones puts the ball right where he needs it to be. You know, so Mac Jones we will say Mac Jones, and I'm proud to say that, you know, I know his folks here locally and great people. One of the things we can also say that he it comes from good stock, good character, and he waited his turn. He is what you say. This is how you become a college football player. Not only does the man, because he's conducted himself like a man
right now.
Yeah, this young man has got, not only does he have his bachelor's, but he's got his master's from the University of Alabama. So he's already set himself up for his own future outside of football. And he's epitome. I don't understand how this young man is not even considered the academic player of the year, because I don't care what his GPA was. He's got not 1, but 2 degrees out of the University of Alabama. And talking about somebody who's made the most of everything given to him by getting a college scholarship, he is the poster child for being the ultimate student athlete. Yep. You're going to get, not only did you get a degree, you got your master's degree, probably halfway through his doctorate. You won several awards. You won your conference. You're a Heisman Trophy finalist. If it weren't for your teammate, you probably would have been the Heisman Trophy winner. You going to probably win the national championship. You're playing for the national championship. You've gotten all kind of accolades from players from the past and people looking up to you, not only nationally, but locally. There's a lot of kids here in the Jacksonville area that look up to you now that didn't even really know who you were. And you've gotten every ounce of everything you could get out of your college career. And you waited to do it. And you've done it in the 100% right way. There's not been any blurbs, any kind of negative things about you. There's nothing but positive stories. So kudos to Mac Jones. Kudos to Mac Jones and his family. You've represented yourselves, your family well, the city of Jacksonville, the county well, and your university and yourself. So, you know, I like to congratulate with him right now. And I think, you know, Ohio State is probably meeting one of Alabama's probably most well-rounded teams of all time. You know, Mac Jones, like I said, his numbers stack up with, just be honest, he's better than Tua as far as performance-wise. I'm sorry. Tua, the performance, if you look at the numbers, this year they're the all-time scoring team in Alabama history. Enough said. So Tua didn't do that. All the other guys before him didn't do that. You know, when you're talking about, they got a Heisman Trophy winning wide receiver, a Heisman Trophy winning finalist tailback, you know, 6 first team All-Americans, 3 of them are offensive linemen. You know, you got one of the greatest offensive juggernauts out there. They can score with anybody. And their defense is starting to play better. They got one of the better cornerbacks, and Patrick Surtain, I think, what is he, junior or the second? He's going to be coming out. He's going to be a first-round draft pick, if not a top 10 pick. Their other cornerback, I can't think of his name, number 28, is going to be a high draft pick. They're getting better and better on the defensive front, where the things they used to do in the mid 2000s, like 2009, 2010, 11, that they're rounding back out. So it's going to be a great game to see what they can do against Ohio State to stop them defensively. If they're able to slow Ohio State down, I don't see Ohio State keeping up with it, because I just don't see Ohio State being able to keep them from scoring under 35, 40 points. I'll let you go ahead.
I can't disagree with you there, but at the end of the day, I'm going to say this again: don't sleep on Justin Fields and Ohio State. Ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't learned anything from this past weekend, Justin Fields has a chip on his shoulder, and although he's not brash about it, he's playing as if someone has pissed him off and talked about his mama. So he's just right now he's just in a zone, and I'm not saying that zone can avoid the defense and the coaching capabilities of Nick Saban, but what I am saying is there's one team that's already overlooked him.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't if I don't think Nick Saban will make the same mistake, but if I'm an Alabama fan or Alabama analyst, I wouldn't go ahead and sign your name to a national championship just yet. And that's just how he plays. That's just who he is as a man, as if we're calling it. Justin Fields has had his personal tribulations in college football, which is why he's wearing an Ohio State Buckeye uniform. So don't put this on Alabama just yet.
No.
Good game. And of course, all the analysts, all the commentators, anyone who has a say so is going to say Alabama right now. That's the smart decision, and I wouldn't be crazy enough to pick Ohio State over Alabama right now. But I will say this, like I said last week, this is going to be a good game.
And I agree. And we're going to switch over to talking to some more playoffs right now. We're going to talk about a little bit of the NFL, because I'm really excited to see this new format with these 7 seeds in here. Only one team getting the bye, and rightfully so. You got Green Bay in the NFC and Kansas City in the AFC. So it's going to give, once again, when we have this COVID starting year in 2020 going into 2021 now, where we got football seem like every day, you're going to get 3 games on Saturday, 3 games on Sunday. It's going to just be exciting. And what we can hope for is that all 6 games over the weekend will be exciting games. The matchups seem to be pretty good. The teams are all familiar with each other for the most part. They all seem to have history, recent history. So, let's just go with this. Start with Titans and the Ravens. The Titans went through the playoffs pretty rough shot. They took it to Baltimore last year, and it was the Derrick Henry show all the way up through the AFC Championship. It's going to be interesting to see what adjustments Baltimore makes to slow this team down, because the Titans present some unique challenges. They're kind of got their own version of the big 3, with Henry, Tannehill, and can't think of his name. 11, their wide receiver. They seem to be able to punch people in the mouth at will. And that's Baltimore's forte. And Baltimore did that. They've done that twice, because they beat Baltimore earlier in the season, which was a close game. They've beaten Baltimore 2 games and 2 matchups in a row now. Has Baltimore figured out a way to get past them? That's going to be an interesting watch to see what Baltimore does to get past the Titans, because it seems like the Titans have their number physically and schematically. So I'm looking forward to see that. And truth be told, in my opinion, Lamar Jackson's legacy is kind of going to depend on what he's doing now. He's going to get that reputation of not being a good playoff quarterback. And when it's time to come for renegotiation of contracts, that's going to weigh in there when people start thinking that, okay, you're only good for us for the regular season. How can you get us to the next level? People fans get fickle. You know what I mean? And sometimes they get spoiled, and they thinking, well, this guy should be doing stuff he get doing, and not understanding how hard it is to be an NFL player or win in the NFL. I'm gonna take your opinion on this.
You know, if you go north of Jacksonville, Florida, there's a little town called Yulee. Now, going to Yulee, under the sign that says "Welcome to Yulee, Florida," there's a sign that says "Home of Derrick Henry," and there's a reason why that sign is there, because he's been a grown man for quite some time, and he's been doing this since high school. This is
Middle school. Middle school.
Yeah, this is nothing new. He's been a man among boys since he was a boy. So I think, they figured it out. For a long time, they couldn't figure it out in Tennessee. I guess it's just they didn't have the right people in place, but they figured it out. Turn around, snap the ball, turn around, hand it to 22,
And to the superhero.
and just watch magic happen. And that's not shots at Ryan Tannehill, because ever since he's got to Tennessee, his career has just made a complete 180, and he's definitely doing his thing. 315 for 481, almost 4,000 yards on the season. Once again, that's not by happenstance. That's just because he's doing his thing. And the guy whose name you missed a little bit there, that's A.J. Brown.
A.J. Brown, that's it. Won't forget that again.
Yeah, he's about that life, and he will go up there and snatch your mama if you hang it up too high. So that's just what they have over there in Tennessee. What people tend to forget, why they have that over in Tennessee, is because Mike Vrabel, the head coach of the Tennessee Titans, literally has one of the most underrated defenses, not only in the AFC, but in NFL. And I give them that nod because, not because of how dominant they can get, not because of the stats and numbers that they put up against offenses, but based on solely on the fact that their team is completely 50-50. And that's an underrated stat. And what I mean for the people at home when I say that is, if I can keep my offense on the bench 50% of the time, and my defense is on the field 50% of the time, it's a good chance that I can win this game if I have a grinded out football team. And I don't think people really understand that about football. And that's just a small tactic of how you can win. His defense gets off the field. They'll do a 3 and out, and if they get extended, they'll get off the field. They have a bend don't break mentality, and when you give a beast like Derrick Henry time to get his breath, and then you get him the ball back, that's what lends them those wins. That's why they stand at 11-5 right now, and you have to give them kudos to Mike Vrabel and his staff for being able to do that. Now, on the other side of the fence, you got Baltimore Ravens, and like you alluded to it a little earlier, how if Lamar Jackson doesn't come up with a W pretty soon, those talks are, is he the guy going to start coming up? And he's very young in his career. Is it fair to do that to him? Hey, that's up to the person who's saying it. And at the end of the day, like we keep saying in football, hey, you control the narrative until the game is over. And right now, Lamar Jackson sitting at 2,000 over 2,000 yards on the season in the air, and 26 touchdowns and only 9 interceptions. And he's doing that most with his receiver Brown, who's caught 8 touchdowns on the season. The problem is Lamar Jackson is also the leading rusher for the Baltimore Ravens. With over 1,000 yards on the season with 7 touchdowns. And granted, Lamar running the ball is almost a circus act, because it's a beauty to watch, and get your popcorn ready because something amazing is about to happen. The issue with that is, when we get that up here in January and we're playing football, you're not running around like that. And if you are running around like that, you're not getting far. So the Baltimore Ravens are going to have to find some way to be able, those receivers to be able to get loose and let Lamar throw it a little bit more, because if he's running around with like a chicken with his head cut off, come the day, it's going to be a problem.
I totally agree. And when you seem like you're more of a one-dimensional type player, it puts you in a box, and the playoff will expose you without any hesitation. And obviously, since he's been in the league, playoff has exposed him and his limitations at a quarterback. Unfortunately, they might start happening where their window gets where they start closing, and they're going to blame it all on him. And that's not totally fair, but the quarterback gets all the glory and he gets all the blame. Unfortunately, that's just the name of the game. Let's quickly go into some of these other games. We're talking about. Let's go on the NFC side. The Seattle Seahawks. Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. And, I mean, yeah, the Seahawks played around. That's a really good game. Don't get me wrong. Against Jalen Ramsey and DJ Metcalf going back and forth is a really good game. I really want everyone to turn their attention to what's going to happen in Maryland, the lower half of Maryland.
The Washington football team
taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. First of all, 79 teams sneaking into the playoffs as a division champion, which is also very interesting in and of itself.
Not the first time.
Not the first time at all. And the way this playoff bracket is, it probably won't be the last. But you're going against a now well-oiled machine. It took a minute, but all cylinders are a go coming out of Tampa Bay right now. And the last person I want to see across from me during the Pledge of Allegiance of a football game, wearing a different jersey than me, is TB12. Yeah. And he's good. Like, I'm sorry, the question going into the season is who was going to be the issue? Was it Bill Belichick, or couldn't Tom Brady do it without him? And Tom Brady right there, Patriots sitting at home. Yeah. So listen, if you're a Washington Redskins fan,
no, Washington football team.
Right, you're right. My bad. Oops. If you're a Washington football team fan, don't order any extra food for this game. Just watch it. Enjoy football. That's what I have to say. Like, don't watch it like, ooh, yes, we can pull this out. You might any given Saturday or Sunday, but
Saturday night, the 8 p.m. game.
Yeah. Just watch it with caution, because good God.
Mm-hmm. And that's, speaking of them, they're looking pretty scary. And Evans may or may not be available for the game, but it really doesn't matter. They got so many weapons. I mean, now you got him. Now he's got timing with Antonio Brown now. Oh my God! And then you still got Gronk, and you still got Cameron Brate. So you could go. I mean, they can attack you with so many ways, so many backs, and their offensive line is starting to gel. It's scary, and their defense is good because you can't run on them. So, and the player that I'm really wanting to see do good is obviously Alex Smith, because he's obviously the comeback player of the year, and he's a feel good story. And the Redskins are a feel good franchise because obviously their coach is battling and overcoming cancer. They got a lot of great storylines, but They almost also too, people are not really rooting for them because it seems like Philadelphia handed them the division on a silver platter when it was a close game. I'm not even counting that. I think they earned their way to be division champions. Basically, they did what they needed to do in their division to make the playoffs, but they drew a bad straw. They draw a team that's on freaking white hot fire right now, especially offensively. And that's not a place you want to play. And this might be over at halftime, and then they put their backups in and get themselves a half of a bye week. And it's gonna be interesting. But like I said, enjoy yourself. You got 6 games the entire weekend. The Cleveland-Pittsburgh game, I'm kind of in. That's going to be intriguing now that Ben will be back. I think they kind of handed Cleveland here, let you get in here type moment, get in the playoffs, because we know we're going to play you again next week, and we might turn on the engines on you that game. It's going to be interesting. But at the end of the day, Kansas City is going to be sitting home waiting for the lowest seed to get to the championship game. I don't see anybody beating them. The only team I even think got a prayer of playing beaten, staying with them is maybe Buffalo because they just have some unique matchup issues. Tennessee, been there, done that. They've had their shot at it. I just don't think they're a great matchup for Kansas City because Kansas City, spotted them 28 points last in the championship last season and blew them out. I don't see that happening with Kansas City spotting anybody this year. I think Kansas City is coming into the point where we're not going to let you get a glimmer of hope. I think Kansas City is going to dominate all the way to the Super Bowl and maybe even into the Super Bowl. The only team, like I said, right now that I see as a great matchup for them, even in the Super Bowl, will probably be New Orleans and maybe Tampa. Because defensively they offer so many matchup issues and seem like this time of year, and they've did it again this year, Kansas City turns it on defensively. They get their guys healthy. They get their guys ready to play. And Andy Reid just is one of the best play callers in football history. He knows how to call those games right. And Eric Bieniemy, this is his spotlight moment to say, hey, this is what I can do. Even though he's went on a few interviews already this week, including here in Jacksonville, this is going to be his chance to say, okay, this is what I can do for these teams. And I actually really think him calling these games and him doing what they need to do offensively is going to give him even more leverage to say, hey, you want me, this is what I want. This is the type of control I want. This is the money that I want. Or I can just stay right here and play and wait for a better job. So Kansas City is highly motivated, like what you were saying with Ohio State. So it's going to take some Herculean efforts by one of these teams to beat them in the AFC and definitely, to win the Super Bowl over them because they're my pick right now. And I'm just going to stick by that because what I've seen in the past. The only team that I actually can see threatening them is any team that has Tom Brady at quarterback in the playoffs. That's who I see going. Normally, NFC, I would probably say New Orleans, but New Orleans has laid an egg against too many playoff games right now for me to really believe in them. Talent-wise, yes, I think they can play with anybody come the playoffs. I just don't trust them. Playoff-wise, they always seem to lay that proverbial egg, give up a big play here, blow a home playoff game there. Yeah, you got a bad break here, but it's all about making it happen. And I think this is Drew Brees' swan song, so maybe that'll give them a little bit of motivation. But I have to see it. And do I doubt that they can do it? No, I believe they can do it, but you still have to show me. And I won't believe it until I see them playing Tampa Bay or Green Bay in the NFC Championship game, and then they got the lead with less than a minute to play. Then I'll believe it.
I'll give you that. No, I don't have any contradictions to anything that was said. I just, wild card weekend, especially in this particular format that they've adopted this year, 3 games Saturday, 3 games Sunday. Anything goes and anything happens. So my eyes will be tuned to the television. So
yeah,
good luck there.
Yeah, this will probably be my most. This will probably be the weekend that I really want to sit down and watch NFL football. It's kind of been hit or miss through the whole regular season, but I'm definitely have some plans to watch and see what happens because it's going to be interesting, especially with the COVID stuff. I heard Cleveland's coach may or may not be coaching in the game, so it's going to be for some interesting watching for the entire weekend. Well, let's move on. Let's talk about some of this NFL coaching. As we know, Monday just happened. And we had Black Monday where we have all the coaches that were released. We already knew there were some GMs that already been released. There was been some interesting interviews. We already know about the Rooney Rule, but I don't think the Rooney Rule was actually misused this year. I think the fact that some people brought in Raheem Morris, which I think is really an ingenious move. I think the man showed himself for what he did finishing up the season with Atlanta, that he's ready to be a head coach. Did they win enough games to make me say, okay, yeah, no. But I just think the way he handled the situation and the way the team responded to him taking over as head coach is why I think he actually got some interviews and going to get some serious considerations at some jobs. Me, I really think what he did, I think he'd be a great fit with a team like LA. I actually think he's still going to get some consideration to be the head coach in Atlanta. Um, I think that he would be a great fit in Houston because I think he would know how to handle those type of personality. He would know how to handle Deshaun Watson, even being a defensive guy. I think Raheem Morris would be that guy who getting a second crack at being a head coach and already know what he would do to fix what happened to him, like what happened to him at Tampa. So I would really like to see what would be interesting. So I know that's a kind of strange name out of all the names that's been out there at the head coaching job when you talk about Bieniemy and Urban Meyer and all these other names that are out there. And then speaking of Urban Meyer, everybody is talking about him with his type of job. Could he be a great fit and be a good job, do a good job in Jacksonville? Yes. I'm just not feeling it. I just based on the history of this guy, for these reasons, I don't know if his health will stay healthy. I don't know if he'll be given enough control, and the control that he gets, will he be able to coach the NFL grown man and motivate a grown man to do with him? College is different than the pros. I just got to feel he's more of the Nick Saban alpha male. I got to be and tell you what to do and put the fear of God in you type, than being able to motivate a man who makes more money or just as much money as him to go be a champion. And then, like I said, it seems like when the ideal situation's not what he wants, he tends to hit the exit. And so I just don't trust Urban Meyer to come into this situation, even though everything is laid out with Jacksonville having all this cap room space, having the first pick in the draft and multiple 12 picks in the first 12 picks in the entire draft and about 8 or 9 in the first four or five rounds. So I'm not feeling that. I would rather go with even a Robert Saleh who has no head coaching experience, but is one of those up and coming names. My guy would be somebody like Eric Bieniemy. Or somebody, I'd even go back. If you're going to go back into the coffers, I would go back and get Bill Cowher if Bill Cowher is interested, because there's a man who's been there, done that. That man knows how to, first of all, identify talent that most people don't identify, and he knows how to coach grown men. So, I'm open to anybody, but even before we even did that, let's go find the GM. Since Shad Khan has come out and says everybody's answering to him anyway, I just don't think Urban Meyer will be the guy that will respect Shad Khan enough to want to answer to Shad Khan. Yeah, I don't care about when you're friendly with a guy. Sometimes you don't feel like he can be your boss. That's just my life experience and the things that I see. When you're the owner and you're saying everybody's answering you, your GM and your head coach needs to have more respect for you as the final say than I think Urban Meyer would. So I think they should look in a different direction, or at least explore all the options and hire the best guy, not hire Urban Meyer because he's Urban Meyer. And I'll get your take on it.
Just to go back a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
with the Rooney Rule, my issue with the Rooney Rule and the way
Let's make a list.
the way it is formatted correctly is that, anytime a team has a open head coach and or GM position,
Mm-hmm.
they have to at least make the attempt to interview a person of color for the position. And we can, we can do probably a whole show about that, but
Mm-hmm.
I won't go too far into that. But you know, hearing that the Jacksonville Jaguars are even thinking about hiring someone like Urban Meyer,
Mm-hmm.
and then hearing another report saying Urban Meyer wants $12 million a year to be the head coach. First of all, I wouldn't give Urban Meyer $12 from my Monopoly playset, let alone 12. And that's just personal reasons for everything you listed and more. And because we saw this with college coaches. We saw this happen to Nick Saban. Nick Saban is one of the greatest college coaches that
Mm-hmm.
has done the job. And I think Urban Meyer falls somewhere further down that category. But I just, like you said, I can't see him stepping into a room where the only thing you have over someone's head to motivate them is playing time. And just for everyone who's out there watching, playing time does not motivate NFL players.
No,
because the check get deposited either way. All we got.
Yes, either way.
So I think people got to understand that, and you don't have that over you have that over a college player. You know you can, hey, you're not gonna get a PT if you don't run this route, or you don't hit this person the right way. You know what I'm saying? You can do that in college and get away with it. You can't go into the NFL locker room and tell Miles Jack and some of my other Jacksonville Jaguar players that you're gonna do what I say or leave, because they'll leave.
Yeah, that's been proven,
and they won't look back either. So, I think you have to, especially with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I'll go as far as say the New York Jets as well, the LA Chargers. You're gonna have to get you a new guy. And what I mean by that is you're going to have to get you a guy who hasn't had that chance before, who you don't necessarily have film on as a head coach, but and you have to give him a shot to do it. And you mentioned his name, Robert Salah, who I think will be one of the best guys for the position. But another name that's gotten thrown out and put his hat in the ring, he's currently the assistant defensive coordinator and the analyst for the Arizona State Sun Devils, and that's Marvin Lewis, who has thought about getting his name back into the NFL coaching ranks. And if guys like that, who haven't been in the game for a minute, or who either they haven't been in the game for a minute or they haven't had their shot. So. And it's going to take that. Now, Eric Bieniemy is a great guy to have. We just don't have the weapons that he's accustomed to having to run the offense that he's accustomed to running, and that fact alone scares me in that name. So yeah, Robert Salah, a possible Marvin Lewis, even maybe a Jim Caldwell, getting back into it. It's going to take someone who either, like I said, hasn't had their chance, or who's been there and taken a step back to see how the game is going. Because shuffling pieces down the board with a team like the Jacksonville Jaguars, we've seen it before. It doesn't work. If it does work, it takes every piece on your chessboard being laid in the correct way, a la the 2017 Jacksonville Jaguar team. It takes all of those pieces in place for it to go well. And we're going to have a coach who's going to literally blow everything up and hopefully create a masterpiece from scratch.
And I totally agree with you. And, there's some names out there, other names just to mention, like Joe Brady. His name has come up again, what he's done. And I think there's even been a couple of other older coaches that they're thinking about trying to give opportunities for this. And I think what can happen is these teams need to take their time this year and make sure they get the right fit, especially the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, I'm also, like I said, my thing is find the GM first. I like the young gentleman over there in Kansas City. There's a couple other people that they've interviewed. You got to have somebody who's going to have a plan, I think, for Shad Khan that Shad Khan can believe in. And because now that he's going to be, thank God, a hands-on owner now, you need people that are going to be able to give him the information he needs so he can make things happen for them. I just think that all these guys are going to get their opportunities. And that was when we was talking about the Rooney Rule. I think the Rooney Rule is not going to be misused this year, because I think more and more teams are going to interview all the candidates that they can possibly have, especially these teams who've been perennial losers for so long, the Jaguars included, the Jets, that knowing that they've made some terrible, terrible decisions when they're hiring processes. They need to take the time, step back, take their time, make sure they hire the right guy, and that way they can build their teams properly. Because I think with the way this league is now, you make a few correct choices and you can turn your whole franchise around literally overnight because it's been done real recently. So we want to make sure that these guys, hopefully here in Jacksonville, that Shad Khan takes his time and hires the right guy. And I'm because here we're locally, we're just sick of losing. We're sick of losing, and I think people would rather you go do other things or watch other teams right now. And the fuse on that patience is probably as low as it's going to ever be now. And let's talk about before we end this show, let's talk about some of the guys that the NFL just recently announced for the Hall of Fame finalists. Obviously, there is some some guys that are going to get in that people that going to say, oh well, he's a no-brainer. Let's take a look at it. I don't know if you've seen that recently. Everybody knows right now Peyton Manning is going into the Hall of Fame. He's a finalist. Charles Woodson, he's going into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Then you started thinking, Megatron, Calvin Johnson, will he be a first ballot Hall of Famer? Me, I say yes, because not just his numbers, but his personality and the marketing that was behind him. Then you started getting, that's where you start getting into who was your finalist. Let's go through the list of the finalists. Jared Allen, Rondé Barber, Tony Baselli, who's once again another finalist, Leroy Butler, Alan Faneca, Torrey Holt, John Lynch, Clay Matthews Jr., Sam Mills, Richard Seymour, Zach Thomas, and Reggie Wayne. If there's a year that Tony Baselli gets in, I think this will be the year. Because when you look at his career compared to any of the other linemen in there, the only other one of any significance was Alan Faneca. And Alan Faneca just be bold, even though he played in some higher, I don't think his brand, as far as a name as offensive lineman, is bigger than Tony Baselli because of all the push of the last few years being a finalist. So this will be the year. They'll probably take 6 or 7. I don't think Torrey Holt will get voted in over Calvin Johnson, even though Torrey Holt's career probably might have been more significant as far as winning and stuff. Defensively, I don't see a name that just pops at me that outside of Leroy Butler being I don't see anybody that, the two names, like I said, will be, to me, is obviously your Heisman Trophy winner, your Super Bowl champion Charles Woodson. Rondé Barber, maybe not with one of those great teams, but he might be canceled out with John Lynch. John Lynch politically because he's a GM now, all that stuff. But I like I said, if there's a year for Baselli to make it in, this will be the year. The rest of them, it's going to be a great debate on who those guys pick. Also, I don't see any. Maybe this because I see there's going to probably be some other legacy players that'll probably get in that we haven't talked about, and also I didn't see any other contributors yet to get in. So I haven't seen those lists. So that's why I'm really thinking that this will probably be the year that Baselli gets in, because the other names are great players, but they're not. This guy's Hall of Fame way over Baselli, and I'm interested to hear what you think about that.
Well, a few disagreements. One, Richard Seymour being on this list kind of just is that extra defensive player that obviously I agree wholeheartedly with the Charles Woodson call, but with Richard Seymour being on this list, kind of I'll say it'll cancel out possibly another DB getting in before they let another lineman in. And then with Torrey Holt being on the list, I can definitely see him getting in over Megatron, just because Torrey Holt was on that Greatest Show on Turf team. Not to mention you still have a Reggie Wayne sitting there waiting before Megatron. And if Megatron's going to get in, I just don't think it's going to be this year. And the thing about Tony Baselli, what I think I need people from Jacksonville to understand, yes, he's gotten a great Hall of Fame push from Jacksonville. That's it. That's it. And granted, other places know of Tony Baselli as a great offensive lineman. Don't get me wrong, but Jacksonville is where he's getting that push. And when you have a top 40 market being the push, not a top 20, not a top 10, not a top 5, giving you the push, they're only getting pushed from one side and not getting pushed from others. And I dare not compare Alan Faneca and Tony Baselli together because you're probably looking at a mirror. But just Alan Faneca name reaches further than Tony Baselli does. And Tony Baselli's done a lot of great things. And I'm not shooting his stats down, Jaguar fans. I'm a Jaguar fan. Please don't shoot my DMs up for it. What I'm saying is,
no, hit up your Twitter page.
Right. Please don't. I'm begging. Alan Faneca at guard and center for those Steeler teams, and then those New York Jet teams. He was part of those few New York Jet teams where Rex Ryan came to the podium every year and said, "We're going to the Super Bowl." So yeah, I just don't see the committee putting Tony Baselli in over him. And so, for that reason, I can kind of lend to that. Now, I wholeheartedly agree. Charles Woodson, Peyton Manning. I may even leave, to the Jacksonville native and Leroy Butler, but yeah, those few receivers and all those DBs, I feel like there's chances for them to get in more, and I'm sorry, I just don't see. If any year, to be honest with you, if Tony Baselli was going to get in, it probably would have been last year when they were letting like 5-6 offensive linemen in. And so, I mean, will Tony Baselli be a Hall of Famer one day? Possibly. I just don't see it being this year.
Okay. Well, that's where we'll agree to disagree on that one because, like I said, I've been watching a lot of the different shows and people have been talking about it, and then obviously with MJD on the NFL Network and a couple other guys that knew about Baselli, there's been a big national push, and I was talking like Prisco and a lot of those guys. There's been a big push in those rooms to get him in, and I wouldn't be surprised if both him and Faneca got in because Faneca is definitely deserving as much as Baselli is because he was on such great teams. It's just the fact that usually tackles are usually more the higher profile position than the center guard, even though Faneca is by far a great Hall of Fame worthy player and had a great career. I think the fact, like I said, this is year 4 in that final room. And I think there's been deals. Okay, we got to let this guy go in there. Okay, we'll get Tony next year. And I think this is the year they can look and say, all right, there's some other guys on this list that we can say justify letting them wait to let him in this year. Not him competing against Alan Faneca. It's him competing against, well, can we afford to let Rondé wait? Yeah, we can let wait. We can let John wait. We can let Clay Matthews wait because Clay Matthews really a Hall of Famer? Was he just a very good player? We can let Sam Mills wait because Sam Mills was very, very good, but was he a Hall of Famer? Zach Thomas. I mean, and no disrespect, I don't even see Zach Thomas as a Hall of Fame player. I saw him as a very, very good player. That's just my personal opinion. I think he's a great guy. I just never seen. If I was going to go in any decade and say what linebacker could I not live without being on my team, Zach Thomas would not come up on there. He would probably be with that next class of guys. I don't even see him when you're talking about 2 middle linebackers, Sam Mills and Zach Thomas. I don't see Zach Thomas even being Sam Mills' class, even though he was a great tackler. When I say Hall of Famer, when I look at a Hall of Famer, I'm looking at a guy that makes a difference in the game, not just a stats guy. Sam Mills made difference in games. Zach Thomas, how many playoff teams that he was on? You get what I'm saying? How many he was the guy that people said, oh, you got a game plan around Zach Thomas. I just didn't see that with Zach Thomas. But I think he's a good player, yes. Great player, maybe. And I like the Dolphins. So I got a lot. I saw Zach Thomas a lot. So I just don't see him. And that's why I look at this list. And Reggie Wayne, is he deserving of the Hall of Fame? Yes. But could they justify making him wait one more year? Yes. So especially when you're talking about Calvin Johnson and also you're talking about Torrey Holt there, and they can put like I said, this is why I really just my analytics looking at it. This will be the year I could see both of those linemen getting in. Uh, Richard Seymour getting in or not getting in, I could see that too, because I can see them justifying it in those rooms with those conversations, thinking that those guys talking amongst each other. And then now you can put that Tony Baselli issue to bed and focus on some of these other guys, and then you can have those guys going through. Because what's coming up next year and in other years, I'm still waiting to see who's one of those guys, because I can't remember who will be eligible again next year. So he's one of those guys they can put it to bed with Tony Baselli, Alan Faneca, and they can get those great offensive linemen kind of to bed and start working on some of those defensive players and skill players. And that's how I feel with that. If you got, I'll let you finish out, and then we'll close this show out.
Oh, no. Right. I mean, everything I've said has been, and we are agreeing to disagree on that one. But, yeah, I mean, I think this is one of those years where if he does get in, kudos to Tony Baselli, and if he doesn't, he will eventually get in.
Yeah, like I said, you're right. Yeah, and we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. He's once again beyond that waiting list to see, and there'll be a story around here on the storyline, and it's a good talk radio for around here locally. So we'll be interesting to see what happens with these guys. Good luck to all of them. I think, just like I said, everybody we've mentioned so far has really deserving to get in. And we'll see how it goes. Well, my friend, we come to the end of it. We've done a great show out of this to open up our new year. I'm wishing you a prosperous new year. Looking forward to next week. You know what we got coming up next week, so we'll do that show early to get ready for next week for our big event that we got coming up. It's going to be interesting, and I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to see where 2021 takes it. Already been an interesting week so far, as that we've already spoken on and off the field of play, on and off the sports world. So on and off in and out of the world of sports. Excuse me for saying it that way. I'm looking forward to see how things go forward. Hopefully we get those stimulus checks that they're talking about. I'm looking forward to that. But what we're going to do, we're going to say goodbye to our fans. Want to thank everybody for tuning in. We try to get these shows to keep you some good talk, some good things to get you through your week. Keep tuning in. Hit us up on our Twitter pages. Hit us up on YouTube and Facebook. We're going to be posting this thing real good. Once again, a shout out to our sponsors, She-Car, Watch Game Film, Team Sportswear Direct, and the Women's Tackle Football League. Be good to each other, man. There's some crazy stuff going on out there today. Be safe out there. Love on one another. And we'll see you right here next week on the Terry McGriff Show. Have a good night.